Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Fantasy Football Post. I'm Sid Rosenberg for OpenSports.com and the National Football Post. Hopefully, you've been following us all season, and now you're in your fantasy playoffs. Let's welcome in my main man, Joe Fortenbaugh, the great fantasy expert at NFPost.com to get you that championship. Joe, how are you, buddy?
Doing well, Sid. How are you doing this morning?
Doing great. You and I will talk later in the week about a certain game at the Meadowlands between two NFC East teams. But right now, let's talk some fantasy playoffs. How about that?
That sounds great. We'll save the trash talk for later in the week when everyone starts to get the hype built up.
Exactly. But right now, it's crunch time, Joe. Each and every week, you hand out the most beastly performance award. And this week, how about Bruce Gradkowski? Can he be useful going forward here? A great job for the Raiders.
He can be. He's looked outstanding for Oakland, especially on Sunday, leading them back in Pittsburgh on the road in a tough environment for a big-time win. Gradkowski threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, was very efficient with the football, no interceptions. He's now got 6 TDs in his last 3 games, and the Oakland passing attack with rookie Lewis Murphy out of Florida starting to come alive. Now, keep in mind, Gradkowski's got some tough games coming up on the schedule with Washington and Denver, but in Week 16 championship week, he's got Cleveland. So he might serve some use for you if you've got a problem at the quarterback position. All
right, Joe, staying with the quarterbacks, Tony Romo. He had been on fire lately until, of course, a Giant game on Sunday. Great in November, not so great in December. While Carson Palmer with Cincinnati, despite the win, he has not been great. Romo and Palmer, what do you see there?
Romo's on the way up right now, had a very nice game at the Meadowlands this past weekend, just under 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, completed over 70% of his passes. He's going to have some real shootouts on the schedule coming up. He's got San Diego this weekend, then he's headed to New Orleans, then he's got the Redskins, and he closes out with the Philadelphia Eagles, which is always a high-scoring game for the Dallas Cowboys. So Romo's going to be in a lot of shootouts coming up. Look for him to continue the trend as Dallas tries to get through December and make the playoffs. Carson Palmer, on the other hand, only 3 touchdown passes in his last 5 games. During that span, averaging less than 200 passing yards per game. Struggled against the Lions, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions this past weekend. He's on his way down, has some tough matchups coming up. Owners might want to start looking at Plan B for the fantasy playoffs.
All right, Joe, I'm going to be a little selfish this week and get some help from my own team. I've got Seahawks running back Julius Jones, currently still the starter in Seattle, but Justin Forsett seems to be the more dynamic back. What do you make of the current backfield situation with the 5-7 Seattle Seahawks?
Well, Forsett's been very dynamic the last 3 weeks that he has stepped in for Julius Jones. However, tweaked his quad in practice on Friday, was listed as questionable for the game against San Francisco. And when you saw the actual game play out, Jones stepped in, carried the lion's share of the workload. He had 20 carries in that game. Now, Forsett still found the end zone and caught a few passes, but the workload shifted back to Jones. Moving forward, when Forsett gets healthy, it's going to be interesting to see what head coach Jim Mora does with his backfield. But as dynamic and as explosive as Forsett has been in this offense, and as much as everyone's like to see him play, Mora has said time and time again that when Julius Jones is healthy, he will be the starter. So if you're a Forsett owner right now, be a little cautious.
All right, Joe, let's take a look at the waiver wire. Are there any additions out there? Anybody fantasy owners should take a look at for these last few weeks? And I know Devon Best had a huge day right down here for Miami against New England last Sunday. He's turned it up under Chad Henne the last couple of weeks. Is a guy like Devon Best a guy you may go to?
Keep an eye on a guy like Devon Best, especially in a deeper league. He could serve as a nice third wide receiver. He can be inconsistent at times as the Miami offense loves to run the football, but 2 good pieces of information. 1, scored his first touchdown this past week. He's starting to see more and more targets from quarterback Chad Henne as these two build a rapport. Number 2, Miami has said that they don't plan on using the Wildcat as much moving forward. Not one Wildcat play against New England this past Sunday, so that means a little bit more to the air to guys like Best, Ginn, and Camarello. So look for him on waivers. He could be a nice depth addition to your team. Also, 2 running backs to look for, Jerome Harrison in Cleveland. He's got some nice matchups coming up, and with Jamal Lewis out for the year, he will handle the workload. Scored 2 touchdowns this past weekend against the Chargers. And also keep an eye on Ahmed Bradshaw from the Giants. A lot of owners soured on him as he's been battling injuries and hasn't seen much work the last few weeks, but had over 40 yards on just 7 touches against Dallas this past weekend. He's going to need to play more of an active role if New York wants to make this final push and get into the playoffs.
I don't disagree, although Jacobs had the long touchdown against Dallas. I agree with the Eagles coming up on the schedule. Bradshaw must make a bigger contribution if the Giants are going to have success. As always, Joe, terrific job. We'll see you again right here on Thursday for more fantasy coverage right here on the Fantasy Football Post, and we'll talk some trash leading up to the Giants and the Eagles. Thank you so much, pal.
Looking forward to it, Sid. Talk to you soon.
All right, man. You can also follow Joe on Twitter. He's at Joe Fortenbaugh. That's Fortenbaugh for more great fantasy updates. And, of course, don't forget his great writing each and every day at nfpost.com. From my main man, Joe Fortenbaugh, I'm Sid Rosenberg. Good luck in your fantasy games. And, as always, everybody, enjoy the football. We'll see you next time right here.